She planted herself between me and the game like she was making a presentation. Arms folded, chin up, voice steady like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Starting today, I want to see other people and still come home to you. I muted the TV. I waited for the punchline. She didn't blink. So, I tested the edges. This openness just for you. Amber lifted a shoulder. Your stability. I want passion. Great, I said without heat. Then, heads up. I already have a girlfriend. Her mouth fell, then snapped. No, that'd only be for me. So, a one-lane road with my name on the curb. I answered, got it. She stood there quiet, measuring. I could have argued, begged, whatever script she expected. Instead, I made a note. This wasn't a wobble. It was a new model. If I'd known where it was headed, I might have set down my fork sooner. She tried again. We can be mature about it. I am, I said, reaching for the remote. You're free. You're not taking this seriously. I am. You wanted different rules. I'm adjusting. Her eyes held mine flat and sure she had leverage. The game clock kept running on mute. She let the silence do the work and walked off like she'd closed a deal. The smell of dish soap drifted from the kitchen. I watched the score and made a decision that didn't need fanfare. The next evening, she stepped out of the bedroom in silk and perfume, the kind that announces itself. Purse on the crook of her arm. Don't wait up, she said, casual like we'd always been that way. Wouldn't dream of it, I replied. I pulled on my jacket as if to take out the trash. She arched an eyebrow at the dead bolt in my hand, then smiled like she knew everything about me and nothing all at once. She left. I changed the lock. The new key turned clean. I twisted out the porch light bulb and clicked off the hallway switch. Then I set my phone to vibrate, made a sandwich, and answered emails until the house settled into a calm I hadn't tasted in months. Sometime after midnight, came pounding on the door. Not a knock, a demand. I slid the living room window up 2 inches. What are you doing? Her face was a pale oval in the dark. Sleeping. I said, you open the door. This is my house, too. Was I corrected? You changed the terms yesterday. I'm matching your energy. You're being cruel. You asked for freedom. I said, no heat. Looks like this. I'll remember this. She threw up, voice shaking now. Good. I shut the window without drama. I heard her breath catch, then footsteps on the porch, a car ignition, tires. The neighborhood went quiet again. I brushed crumbs off the coffee table, turned off the TV, and slept. Morning, I showered, made eggs, and drove to the bank before work. At the counter, I moved our joint funds into a personal account with my name only, left enough to keep the account technically alive and set alerts on every transaction. I added a freeze on new cards. The manager gave me the professional smile people give when they've seen this movie before. At the office, I walked the warehouse floor like I always do. Count pallets, check the staging, shake hands with guys who lift more than they talk. I keep order for a living. It's not glamorous, but trucks leave full and on time because I make simple rules and enforce them. Around 10 o'clock, Amber showed up in a coat that still had last night's perfume clinging to it. Cheeks bright from the cold and anger. She didn't wait for me to come to the lobby. She came straight into distribution right where my team could hear. I can't log into our account. She announced straight through to the point. What did you do? I kept my voice low the way you do in a warehouse where echoes travel. You mean my account? We are married, she said, scanning faces for allies. You can't just. You said you wanted separate lives with shared benefits. I checked my clipboard, then looked up. I made the benefits match the choice. This is abusive, she said louder. Maybe hoping volume would make it true. This is my workplace, I answered. You're on my time and my floor. Keep it respectful or step outside. That took the air out of her for a second. She swallowed. You're overreacting. Settle your plans with your resources, I said. That's the adult version. You'll regret this. She hissed. Noted. I nodded to the dock supervisor. Lane 3 were behind. She stood there realizing there'd be no scene to feed on. Then she spun and left. A forklift beeped. Someone coughed to cover a chuckle. I didn't talk about it with anybody. I didn't need a peanut gallery. I needed my day back. By afternoon, her social media started doing what hurt feelings do when they need an audience. A selfie with wet eyes. A caption about silence as a weapon. Vague lines about control. Subtle monsters. Safe homes turned cold. Nothing explicit, just enough for people to fill in the blanks with whatever made them feel wise. I didn't reply. I screen captured everything, header, and timestamp. I labeled a folder, Amber, public statements, dates, and dropped in each post. I didn't comment, didn't correct, didn't feed it. I sent the folder to an attorney a friend recommended. Mr. Patel, he wrote back in 2 lines. Received. We'll proceed stepwise. Stay quiet online. Around 7, while I was loading leftovers into containers, the front door opened with my new key and then closed. Amber cleared her throat. I didn't turn. I let plastic lids click. This was a bad conversation, she ventured, voice softer now, like she was smoothing a sheet. I got carried away. You were precise, I answered. You want your fun and my resources. Her shoes made a small sound on the tile. We're not enemies, Nick. I'm not your sponsor either. A breath. I'll cook. We can talk. I ate, I said, sliding a container into the fridge. And we talked last night. That wasn't a talk, she said, trying for a warm laugh that didn't land. That was you doing your little, she caught herself. Your boundaries, right? I said, keep those in mind. Can I at least get a new key? Not today. Her tone thinned. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I said, wiping the counter. You are. We didn't fight. We coexisted in the kind of polite quiet that happens when 2 people have stopped pretending they share values. She went to bed early and slept on the far edge. I took the small bedroom and shut the door. Let me pause the story for just a second. If you're still here, please hit the like button. It really helps YouTube recommend this story to more people. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the story. Thursday, she left a to-go cup on the counter at dawn with a sticky note for your long day. The first sweet gesture in weeks. I poured it into the sink. Not because I'm vindictive, because I like knowing what I'm drinking. That's not paranoia. That's adulthood. On my way out, I took a picture of the note and saved it with the other screenshots. Not to use against her, but to remind myself how timing works when people feel their grip slip. The first illusion of change always shows up as care with strings. That weekend, our friend Ryan had his birthday in a rented hall by the freeway. Cheap lights, plastic cups, a DJ who was too proud of his playlist. The usual crowd, guys I coached Saturday softball with their wives, a few strays who orbit any gathering with a bar. Amber ran hot that night. Full hair, sharp dress, listeners clustered. When I walked in, she gave me a smile with teeth, and then turned away to whisper to Melissa and Dana. I shook Ryan's hand, clapped his shoulder, handed him a card with tickets for a weekend fishing thing he'd been hinting at, and moved toward the food table to build a plate and keep my back to a wall. They came in a formation, 3 women with purpose. Melissa led. She's blunt because blunt gets her attention. Dana flanks, nods, amplifies. Rebecca ties a bow with a comment that sounds soft but isn't. Nick, Melissa started, making sure people nearby heard. She's in a tough spot. Can't you ease up? She can't access the account. You mean my account? I corrected and forked a meatball onto my plate. You're still married, Dana added like she was reading from a pamphlet. There's a duty. There's a choice, I replied. She made it. I'm matching it. Rebecca took a sip from her cup. Maybe keep it off the internet. She's upset. You know how people post. I'm not posting, I said. She is. She's exploring. Melissa pressed. It's not a crime to want more than routine. It is when your more is powered by someone else's wallet. I said and set down the fork. You can't straddle both worlds and call it growth. You're punishing her. Dana accused. I'm not handing out rewards for disrespect, I replied. She's scared. Rebecca offered. She's organized. I countered. That's different. Melissa leaned in. You loved her. You still do. Help her through this. Unlock the account. I tilted my head. I'm not financing a rebellion. I didn't approve. Wow. Dana said. Cole. Accurate. I said, there's a difference. A few nearby faces turned. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The DJ shifted to a slow track nobody asked for. Amber glanced over, saw us, and smiled like a director who approves of how a scene is unfolding. Then Jenna arrived. She's been in our circle forever, mostly close to Amber. Teacher, quick mind, a way of saying things that makes a room reset. She took in the tableau and stepped in like a referee who also owns the court. Melissa, Jenna said, you left out context. Amber told me she was going to crack Nick's reputation to control the story. Those were her words. So maybe stop pushing him to pay for a narrative he didn't write. Melissa's mouth opened. You're exaggerating. Jenna shook her head once. No, I'm not. Amber drifted closer, voice honey, sweet but tense. Jenna, that's not. You said it. Jenna cut in my car 2 nights ago outside my place. You asked me which hashtags would get traction. She looked at me. You good? I'm working. I answered. Thanks for being specific. Amber's smile went glassy. I'm not the enemy here. Then act like a partner, Jenna replied. Not a PR department, Dana bristled. Jenna, you're out of line. I'm in line with facts. Jenna shot back. The room recalibrated. You could feel the sympathy bubble lose air. Amber's audience thinned by a person or two, which is all it takes. I finished my plate and went outside for air. Cold night, neon buzzing from the sign, the smell of cheap beer in the highway. Jenna followed after a minute with 2 coffees from the catering table. She handed me one. No sugar, she said. I remember you never take it. Appreciated, I said, and we stood there watching a patrol car glide past, not stopping. Thanks for the straight talk in there. I'm done gently carrying stories that get used to hit people, she said. What are you going to do? Keep it boring. I said, I'll send the folder to Patel. If she keeps aiming at my name, we'll put it on paper and let the right people read it. Jenna nodded. Do you need anything? I need to stop discussing, Amber, I said, not unkind. How's your class load? We talked about books and kids' essays and why teenagers keep choosing the same topics. No flirting. Just 2 people who like clarity. She made a joke about grading being the slowest form of justice. I laughed once and meant it. In the days after, Amber switched to public push mode. More posts about stone walls and power games. Photos of her hand near a window with rain on it. Captions about forgiveness and growth pointed like arrows at me, but phrased like poetry class. Friends of friends slid into my messages with paragraphs about how men can learn, as if this was a course. I didn't engage. I put each message in the folder. I kept moving through my week. Morning runs, work, dinner alone, a couple of coffees with Jenna in daylight, places where nobody could spin anything. We didn't talk about Amber. That became a quiet rule. I wouldn't use one woman to process another. Amber's first. Soft pivot came on a Sunday. She was in the kitchen when I came back from the hardware store, buying a second deadbolt for the back door because I prefer redundancy to speeches. She had a pan going, the smell of garlic, the easy domestic soundtrack she used to play on autopilot. I made your favorite, she said like we'd hit rewind. She set a plate in front of me, not asking if I was hungry. We should reset. We're past reset, I replied, sitting but not touching the fork. You're punishing me, she tried. I'm putting skin on your terms, I said. I can fix this, she said, leaning on the counter in that way that used to turn my head. We got lost. People get lost. We didn't get lost, I said. You left the path and asked me to hold the map and the snacks. You're heartless. No, I said evenly. I'm tired of paying for someone else's thrill and getting lectured when I cancel the card. Can we at least be civil? She asked smaller. We are, I said, and stood civil as boundaries without yelling. Her eyes flicked to the pan, to my hands, to my face. You're really going to eat alone? I've been doing most things alone the last few months, I said. I'm just naming it now. I put on my jacket. I've got an errand. We're out, I said and left. Tuesday morning, she upped the stakes. She came to my office again, this time with tears primed, but my admin cut her off at the lobby. He's in a meeting, she told Amber. And for that alone, I bought my admin coffee for a week. That afternoon, Mr. Patel called. I've drafted a complaint, he said. It's narrow false public statements that harmed your reputation. We'll ask for a retraction order and damages to cover your costs. It's a boundary, not a war. You okay being patient and calm in a room with a judge? I sort freight for a living, I said. Patience is muscle memory. He chuckled. Good. Keep your online footprint clean. No replies, no comments. Let documentation do the talking. The second change from Amber came 2 days later, bigger and sweeter. She came into the living room with a new phone plan printout. I put you on my family plan, she said like it was a prize. It's cheaper. We can save. Take me off, I answered. She blinked. I'm trying to show I care. You're trying to reattach a string. She set the paper down harder than necessary. Everything with you is a test now. No, I said with you, everything is a lever. You're impossible. You're transparent. She stared at me for a long breath. Then she did the thing she does when she knows she's not winning. She laughed like it was cute that I was stubborn, kissed the air near my cheek, and murmured, "You'll come around." She doesn't know me as well as she thinks. At Ryan's the next weekend, she unveiled a new tactic. She told a cluster of people I was with someone already. She framed it as a confession to look gracious while implying I'd betrayed a timeline. People glanced at me like they had math in their heads and a verdict ready. I didn't defend. Jenna looked at me across the room, brows raised, and I shook my head once. Don't feed it. We left separately. I met Jenna for coffee the following day at a place with a window that looks out on Colfax. People forever moving past with their own stories. I'm not signing up for running commentary, I told her. I don't want to be that guy. You're not, she said. You've said less than anyone. I'm getting out clean, I replied. Not noble clean. You know she'll push until there's a spectacle. Jenna said she needs an audience. Let me pause the story for just a second. If you're still here, please hit the like button. It really helps YouTube recommend this story to more people. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the story. She can perform all she wants. I said, I'm closing the theater. We drank in companionable silence for a while. She told me about a kid who wrote a perfect essay on honesty and then plagiarized the last paragraph from a site. They always overreach right at the end, she said. I filed that away. By the time the hearing date came, Amber had posted 3 more rounds of word cloud captions and 2 TikToks with vague audio about breaking cycles. Mr. Patel walked me into a wood-paneled room with a bench, a flag, a judge I'd never met. Ramos, sharp eyes, crisp questions. We were up first thing in the morning. No crowd, no press, just a few strangers waiting for their turn to argue about parking tickets or neighbor fences. Patel put our packet on the card. He didn't try to sell anything. He just handed over the stack. Screenshots, dates, timestamps, copies of messages people sent me citing her claims. He said a few sentences about harm to my reputation in my field, a field where trust is currency. Amber's attorney. Yes, she walked in with one, tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, as processing pain. He used soft words. Ramos stopped him with a raised palm. Did your client post these? He asked. She was emotional, the man said. Did she post them? Ramos repeated. Yes, the attorney admitted. Ramos looked at Amber. Do you understand the difference between private distress and public statements about another person's character? He asked. Amber's chin lifted. I was telling my truth. That phrase doesn't protect you from consequences, Ramos said, voice flat. He turned to Patel. What remedy are you seeking? Removal of the posts, written retractions on every platform she used, and damages to cover Mr. Dalton's costs, Patel said. Granted, Ramos said after flipping through the packet for another full minute, retractions posted within 10 days. $18,000 in damages payable and 60 compliance to be verified. Next, there was no cinematic music, no gavel slam, just the crisp mechanics of consequences. Amber sat very still while the words landed. When it was over, she looked at me like I'd betrayed a pact I hadn't signed. In the hallway. She reached for my arm. You did this to humiliate me. No, I said, you did it to yourself. I just recorded it. You could have just talked to me, she threw. As if we hadn't been doing that for months. I did. I said, you wanted an audience. Now you got one with authority. You're celebrating, she accused. I'm closing a file, I said. That's all. I turned and walked out into the Colorado sun that makes everything look cleaner than it is. At home, she was quiet for 2 days. Then she pivoted one more time. Sweetness turned syrup. She opened the door for me when I came in from work, took my jacket, reached up to smooth my collar. I miss you, she said. Low like a whisper is a ticket back. I miss respect, I replied. We can rebuild that. We could have, I said. Now we're restructuring. What does that mean? I'm moving out, I said. This weekend, panic flashed. Wait, I didn't. I booked a small place 10 minutes from the warehouse, a 2-bedroom with a view of a strip of trees, and a parking lot that empties by 9. I rented a storage unit for my tools and the good things I didn't want broken in a scene. I changed my mail forwarding, my autopace, and my emergency contacts. I took only what I paid for, and a few things I love for reasons that have nothing to do with anyone else. On Saturday morning, I set boxes by the door without huffing. I was rolling the dolly out when Amber walked in wearing a robe, hair up, eyes red like she'd been practicing. You're really doing this, she said. I told you I would. You won. She tried. No, I said. I ended it. You're throwing away our life. You gave it away. I said, I just stopped guarding the pile. She moved closer. What about everything we built? I'm taking my part. I said, you can keep yours. The posts are yours. The performance is yours. The consequences are yours. The quiet is mine. You'll be back. She said, the last card. I don't go backward, I said. She took a breath. So that's it. Not yet, I said. I set the dolly down and pulled a small white envelope from my jacket. This is the key to the storage unit. Your keepsakes. Are there access codes on the note? I inventoried it so you can't accuse me of tossing anything. I paused and this is my last sentence to you in this house. She folded her arms, bracing. What? She said, you wanted passion without price. I told her, the price is me. I'm paid up and leaving. I picked up the dolly and walked out. The lock clicked behind me. A simple sound that ends a chapter. I didn't look back at the porch. I loaded the truck, stacked the last box, and drove. The following week, a row of retractions appeared on her pages. I made statements about my husband that were not accurate. I retract them. No flair, just duty. One by one, her friends who'd been loud got quiet. The ones who loved drama found new episodes. That's how it goes. I settled. The new place is small, but it's mine. I set my toolbox under a window. I put my coffee mug on the same spot every morning. I drive a clean pickup that starts when I turn the key. I wake to silence and go to sleep to silence. The good kind, not the kind that punishes. On Saturdays, I help Ryan fix the gutter on his garage. On Sundays, I run a trail that smells like pine and dust and a little bit of freedom, which turns out to be nothing like movies, more like breathing where no one's timing you. Jenna and I kept meeting for coffee. After the dust settled, I asked her to a reading downtown. She said yes. We went, we listened. We didn't talk about Amber. We talked about whether people learn better from pain or from consequences. She said both. I said only the second one sticks. She laughed and didn't argue. That was our second quiet rule. No debates that pretend to be intimacy. Just clear steps. At work, I got promoted to regional. Not because I'm special, but because trucks leave on time and the numbers don't lie. I hired 2 supervisors, cut overtime bloat, added a simple rotation that kept people from burning out. The owner likes people who do what they say. I do almost obnoxiously. That habit got me here. And kept me sane when everything else went off script. Amber, I heard secondhand she moved into a smaller apartment near a yoga studio she loves. Posted less, then more than less again. People said the retraction cost her some of the sympathy she spent months collecting. People drifted. That happens when your audience realizes the show isn't about truth, it's about spotlight. I don't check her pages. I don't ask. Sometimes I get a message from somebody we both know. I don't answer. I don't run from ghosts. And I don't host them either. The day the check arrived from her attorney, I took it to the bank, deposited it, and didn't celebrate. I bought a second-hand oak table from my place and invited 3 guys from work over for chili. We ate, watched a game, argued about a call, cleaned up. Normal is underrated until you lose it. I kept the folder with screenshots in a drawer for a while. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. When someone shows you what they'll do for attention, believe them. When someone tells you they want everything plus your respect on layaway, deliver the invoice and step aside. Months later, Jenna and I took a drive up into the foothills. We stopped at a diner with bad coffee and a waitress who kept calling us Han in a way that didn't feel fake. We split a slice of pie and watched trucks climb the grade like stubborn animals that didn't know the word quit. On the way back, she asked, "Do you ever miss the old routine?" I miss who I was before. I accepted less than I said I would, I replied. But I like this guy more. She reached over, laced her fingers with mine, and didn't say anything else for a mile. I didn't need words. I've had enough of the kind that rearrange reality to fit a mood. I'm into facts that travel by action. Amber once told me I'd regret not being more open. She was half right. I regret every minute I stayed in a house where my boundaries were optional. I don't regret the day I put a key in a lock that had my name on it and no one else's permission attached. People talk a lot about closure. Here's what I learned. You don't wait for it, you build it. It looks like a changed lock, a bank transfer, a quiet no, a folder of facts, a ruled line in a public room, a final sentence at a door. It sounds like a dolly rolling over cement, and the click of a latch. It feels like a life where you don't need an audience to know you did the right thing. If you're listening for a twist where I softened and went back, there isn't one. That's the whole point. The show ended, the audience left, the stage got swept, and I drove home. A place with no spotlight and all the light I need. This is where the story ends. How was today's story? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and where you're watching from. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.